België? Laat dat maar aan mij over.
The Belgian Railway Class 08 Desiro, not to be confused with the Grand Lad, and identified differently depending on which language you refuse to communicate with, is a 3-car joint German and Belgian built electric multiple unit. Built both by Siemens and Bombardier with the goal of disposing 1.3 billion euros lying behind the sofa, with the additional benefit of offering some new trains to run around in Belgium. The Class 8 has been the new jack-of-all-trades type of train, doing its best to exist since 2011. Contrary to popular belief, these trains are quite rare and can only be seen serving a few select places in the country of Belgium, including but not limited to the likes of Aalst, Antwerp and Haven, As, at, Brussels Airport Zaventem, Brussels Schumann, Brussels West, Karlsborg, Co, Diepind, Dinant, Erquelins Village, Forks, Gemblaux, Genbrug, Inuiers, Hove, Lier, Liers, Lokeren, Mol, Oudenet, Rosela, Sai, Turnhout, Wharf, Ivwa, Zeebruggen Zitchen. So do I think these trains have done a great job providing services in Belgium? Actually, why am I even asking? Let's just find out already. Before we begin, I'm aware of the other Desiro mainline units that see use in other regions of Europe, such as Austria, Germany, and Hungary. As I have not rode on any of these units, I shall quietly ignore their existence instead of comparing them to the Belgian version we are looking at today. You'll have to wait until flights to Vienna become affordable before we'll look at the others. Now it's time for a quiz. How many of these trains do you think were ordered by the Belgians? I'll give you a few seconds to guess. The correct answer was 305. That's right, more than 300 of these blasted things are roaming free across the Belgian railway network, and are arguably the most common vehicle you'll see that isn't a discarded rental e-scooter. To put that number into perspective, that's 33 more trains than all of Southern Railway's Turbostar and Electrostar fleet combined. A large amount of trains were ordered as the Belgian Railway was desperate to vote-kick all of their older fleet from the network. A process that was so successful, they managed to pull it off only 9 years after all the Class 08 units entered service. The Desiro mainline units used in Belgium are split into two subclasses, being the 8000 and the 8500 series. Thankfully there is only one noteworthy difference between them, being the additional pantograph that's been glued on two units in the 8500 subclass. This is because the southern region of Belgium was electrified in the early 2000s at 25 kV AC, as opposed to the standard 3000 volts DC system in the rest of the country, to allow for easier connection for multiple unit trains into Luxembourg. This is a tray that is only shared with the M7, some locomotives and some variants of the uncircumcised Class 96 units. Not only does this mean that the units also see use running some local services in Luxembourg, but this also technically means that the train is capable of running on the high-speed lines, such as to the HSL station of Noorderkampen. I believe this image describes exactly how I feel about that concept alone. Despite this versatility, the train is prohibited from entering the Netherlands due to a combination of platform clearance and power issues. Thank goodness the MS-75 exists to fill that niche for serving Roosendaal. I believe the same constraints apply for the line to Aachen too, but I was unable to properly confirm this in my research. In terms of appearance, I like them. Thanks to not needing to have a cab gangway like most of the UK Desiros, the trains are able to have a streamlined front, painted yellow to improve visibility. The livery on them is good too, even if Belgian trains attract graffiti artists of all skills and ages worldwide, and treat their white bodies as a literal canvas to paint amazing artwork on. That aside, the trains are good looking. The motor sounds are completely different from the Desiros back here in the UK, but the motors still make a nice sound when accelerating, and a funky stutter when moving off. It's also worth mentioning that the trains have a reduced weight when compared to older UK Desiros. The lower weight of the train may seem like an insignificant issue, especially when it's only 25 tons less than the Class 450, but as I've mentioned in the past, the heavy weight improves ride and adhesion, meaning that wheel slip is almost non-existent on the UK Desiros. The Belgian Desiro on the other hand seems to handle adverse adhesion conditions as well as Oscar Pistorius running across a polished ice rink with bars of soap attached to his prosthetics. At least the Desiro mainline is fast, when not having to suffer the perils of low adhesion, or getting owned by the slow reaction of the ETCS signaling system. The trains can accelerate up to 1.1 meters per second squared, which is very impressive for a train. The top speed of the units is 160 kilometers per hour, which is achievable on various lines on the network. Not on the slightly sharp junction on the approach to Charleroi Central though. Bad mark for the laws of physics there. So why does it seem like I have such a hate boner for this train? It doesn't seem so bad from what I've told you so far. Well, the main problem stems from a single word. Allocation. Unlike most train companies in Europe, it would seem that Belgium's main strategy for rolling stock allocation on most of its services is to just use whatever is lying around in the kitchen sink. In spite of having more than 300 Class 8s lying around, you will see instances of a 3-car Desiro running in place of a double-decker intercity train that would have offered 7 or 8 coaches, with plenty more toilets, luggage space, seats and standing room. This is simply unacceptable. Now it's true that the trains can run in pairs, which is seen on a regular basis on the Brussels S train network, and whilst the trains are also capable of running in triple formations, the only service that regularly uses that is the Brussels S8 line, connecting the city of Brussels to a random university located in the middle of bumfuck Wallonia. One of the worst offending services these trains run on is IC33 from Liège-Guillemins to Luxembourg Central. This 2-hour and 40-minute long intercity journey can use double or single Desiro units connecting between the two countries, winding on lines that struggle to exceed 100 km per hour. I'd like to remind you that in the past, this service was served by loco-hauled Class 13s and a rake of around 5 I6 or I10 coaches. Can you imagine having a comfortable loco-haul train be downgraded to some cheap commuter train rolling stock for an intercity train service? In the interest of fairness, the introduction of the new M7 multiple units have allowed this issue to be mitigated ever so slightly, but not enough for this to not be a regular occurrence because lol. So what is the Desiro main line like to ride on? Well, as always with Belgian trains, I must first assert my dominance by boarding the train in style. Oh wait, I forgot to film that joke lol. Well, before we get to the elephant in the room, it's worth saying that things are looking promising to start off with. We have an air-conditioned interior, with a 2+2 seating arrangement throughout the train with low floor sections in the vestibules for easier access, whilst the seats above the wheels near the ends of each coach require a single step up. A deployable step is also provided beneath the doors for boarding, though it's really hard to say if it makes much of an impact considering how low some of the platforms can be anyway. Onboard passenger information displays are provided, which include vibrant graphics on these new screens, fitted by the vestibules. The older orange scrolling displays are still retained in case the fitters lose the Windows activation key again. Okay, so let's not beat around the bush anymore. These seats are horrible. Truly a pain and a half to sit on, even for short journeys. No folding tables or armrests are provided, because that would be way too much to ask, though some seats have a small beam by the seats if you're lucky. There is also a distinctive lack of grab poles throughout the coach, despite these running right through the capital of Belgium. Whilst charging points are provided, there is no bloody way that you will find them on your first ride of these trains. They are located beneath the overhead luggage racks, and are few and far between because of it. I guess fitting them under the seats would be too much to ask for. I'm more annoyed by this interior spec than I usually am due to the sheer variety of services this train is used on. For all the faults of the Class 345, at least it's not used on London to Norwich services. This train on the other hand does the equivalent of that, proudly and unironically. A single wheelchair accessible toilet is provided in one of the driving coaches of the train, complete with a long row of folding seats that have a comfort level debatably better than the regular seats and a large space for storing your cockney diment. The toilet itself is simply massive, easily one of the biggest we've seen in these videos so far, and I have no problems with it. Except why is there only one toilet per train? The trains that this is replacing had 2 toilets, so I really don't understand how the inclusion of a second toilet would have been too much to ask. It's a good thing that the practice of using short trains with a limited amount of toilets and subpar interior design running long distance regional services lasting more than a few hours is such a rare practice to see across Europe. I'm ever so glad that this is never done in any other country, since nobody deserves to suffer on journeys that are on trains like these. Thankfully I have never seen, nor have had to witness this kind of choice happen anywhere during my travels, especially in Wales. What do you mean I'm currently on my overdraft on my use of sarcasm? First class is included on both ends of the train. But why? Even if we concede the addition of slightly more comfortable seats, armrests and the inclusion of some actual folding tables, there's still no door separating first and standard class, and I really don't understand why not. If the 350-2 can pull off a better first class, then there's no excuse for what we have here. Never mind the 350 for a second. Even the original classic material trains had doors separating first class and seats that were way more comfortable. This is just an insult. The future of the Belgian Class 08 is very stable. Belgium tends to keep their trains for long enough for the cobwebs inside the traction motors to become grade listed artifacts anyway, so a full-on replacement of these trains shouldn't be expected to be seen for a while, unless all units have been secretly built of asbestos. We shall just jump into the conclusion then. Being very kind for a moment, I think the Belgian Class 08 is fucking awful and feels like it was designed by someone with autism denial disorder for sure. It's easily the worst Belgian train we have looked at in this series so far, and one of my least favorite trains in active service. However, I should make it clear that for as rubbish as this train is, it's not exactly unsalvageable. With its 14th birthday passing through, a refurbishment is certainly due for these trains, and with the right team of highly skilled individuals employed, I believe that refurbishing these trains could solve most of my gripes I have with it. An extra coach with an additional toilet added, improved seating with extra charging points, both of the USB and standard plug points, possibly 1+1 seating by the vestibules to increase standing room, and a door to separate first class would at least make it feel like you want me to take this train seriously. I don't expect all of these changes or improvements done, but it's worth writing a letter to Santa about. It would be nice to receive something for Christmas that isn't coal for once. Now you know my thoughts on the Belgian Desiro main line. Go out there and write angry tweets about how CAF have nicked the contract for building the upcoming fleet of trains for Belgium right under the noses of Siemens and Alstom. Remember everyone, CAF is love. CAF is life.